The armory was quiet that afternoon. Dust motes floated in beams of light slanting through the high windows, catching on rows of rifles lined up like soldiers at attention. Most people walked past this room without a second glance. To them, it was just a storage space of cold steel, worn wood, and locked cases. But to Corporal Hannah Price, it was a sanctuary. She sat cross-legged on the floor, a rag in her hand, carefully polishing the barrel of an M2010 sniper rifle. Her touch was steady, patient, almost reverent. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't cleaning because it was an order. She was cleaning because it felt like respect. Respect for a weapon that had once kept her alive. Respect for the silent bond between a marksman and the steel in their hands. That's when Commander James Rowe, a decorated Navy SEAL with a reputation for never missing details, stepped into the doorway. He was just passing through until something on the rifle caught his eye. Etched faintly into the side of the stock, like a secret only meant to be whispered, was a number, 2940. Rowe frowned. He knew what that number meant. Every sniper carved their longest confirmed shot somewhere, even if unofficially. But 2,940 meters, that was almost 2 miles. And the woman holding the rifle, she wasn't a sniper, at least, not on any roster he'd ever seen. She was a supply clerk, someone who spent most of her days pushing crates, signing off manifests, and if rumor was true, bringing cookies to tired soldiers when shifts dragged too long. "You mind telling me what that number means?" Rowe asked, voice low, almost testing her. Hannah glanced up, startled, then smiled, a gentle, almost shy, "Just a broken bar reminder." Rowe stepped closer. "A reminder of what?" Her fingers hesitated on the stock, and for a moment he thought she might deflect, but instead, she laid the rifle down across her lap and spoke quietly. "Afghanistan, mountain pass outside Kunar province, a convoy pinned down. They didn't even see where the fire was coming from, just knew it was raining lead." She paused, her eyes far away. "I wasn't supposed to be there. Wrong place, wrong time. I wasn't part of the mission, but I had this rifle, and I had a clean line of sight." Rowe's brows knit. He'd heard stories of impossible shots, but never from someone like her. "One trigger pull," she continued softly, "and 30 men lived to see the sunrise. They never knew who took it. They just a broken bar walked away." There was no pride in her tone, no boasting, just quiet weight, the kind that settles in a person who has carried both the burden and the mercy of taking a life to save others. Rowe studied her, then asked the question that had been forming in his mind. Why keep it quiet? Why not let them know? Hannah looked down at the rifle, fingers brushing the faint mark. Because medals don't matter, headlines don't matter. What matters is that those men went home. They hugged their kids, kissed their wives, lived their lives. That's enough. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was full of respect, of realization, of the kind of truth that doesn't need to be shouted. Rowe, a man who had seen heroes rise and fall, felt something shift in his chest. He'd spent years believing valor was measured in missions, in decorations, in the way history books recorded your name. But this woman, this quiet supply clerk with tired eyes and calloused hands, had just reminded him that the truest kind of heroism often hides in plain sight. He took a step back, then offered her something rare, a crisp salute. Hannah blinked, surprised. Then, with a humble nod, she returned it. The moment was small, almost invisible to the outside world. But in that silent exchange, two truths met, the one forged in combat, the other in quiet humility. Later, Rowe told his SEAL team what he had learned. Not about the distance, not about the shot, but about the kind of strength that never asks for recognition. And slowly, words spread, not of a number carved into a rifle stock, but of a woman who carried her kindness like a weapon. Soldiers began stopping by the armory more often, not just for gear, but for the calm way she listened, the way she remembered names, the way she always had a steady word when someone needed it most. Her legacy became more than a shot. It became a reminder that real power isn't just in skill or precision. It's in choosing compassion when you could choose silence. It's in lifting others without needing the world to know your name. And so, Whenever a young recruit polished their weapon and noticed that faint number 2,940, they didn't just see a record, they saw the story of a woman who taught hardened warriors that the greatest mark you can levy a broken bar isn't carved into steel, it's carved into lives. Weeks passed. The number 2,940 became a quiet legend among the soldiers, but Hannah didn't change her ways. She still showed up early, still cleaned rifles like they were fragile antiques, still baked cookies for the night shift. One evening, Roe returned to the armory. He found her sitting in the same spot, this time oiling a pistol, humming softly to herself. "Why do you still do this?" he asked. She looked up. "Do what?" "Spend hours in here. Weapons you'll probably never fire again. Rifles that'll end up in someone else's hands." Her eyes softened. "Because someone will hold this rifle one day when everything depends on it. Maybe they'll be tired, maybe scared, maybe too young. If it's clean, if it works, that's one less thing for them to worry about. It's my way of protecting ammo before they even know they need it." Roe was struck silent. It was then he realized that Hannah wasn't defined by that single shot across 2 miles. She was defined by every quiet, invisible act that kept others alive. The twist. One night, during a base attack, the alarms blared and chaos erupted. Roe and his team scrambled, but before he could reach the perimeter, he saw something that stopped him cold. Hannah, supply clerk Hannah, was on the rooftop, M2010 pressed to her shoulder, eyes locked down range. Her breathing was steady, movements precise. In less than a minute, she dropped 3 targets no one else had even spotted. Then, without a word, she set the rifle aside, climbed down, and went straight to tending the wounded. Later, when Roe found her bandaging a young private's arm, he shook his head in disbelief. "You could have been one of us, you know. SEAL, Ranger, take your pick." She smiled faintly. "Maybe, but someone has to be the person who stays behind, who listens, who makes sure they have a safe place to come back to. That's my mission." The emotional climax. A few weeks later, Roe attended a homecoming ceremony. Families gathered, cheering as soldiers reunited with their loved ones. Children clung to fathers. Mothers kissed sons. The air buzzed with relief. Roe noticed Hannah standing at the edge of the crowd, smiling but alone. No medals pinned to her chest. No one chanting her name. Just quiet pride in her eyes. He walked over, holding something in his hand, a challenge coin, engraved with a SEAL trident. It wasn't protocol. SEALs rarely gave those outside the Brotherhood. But he pressed it into her palm and said, "For the ones who never knew your name but lived because of you." Hannah's eyes glistened, though she quickly blinked the tears away. "I don't need this," she whispered. Roe shook his head. "Maybe not, but we do. We need to remember people like you exist." The closing message. From that day forward, Hannah became a symbol not of distance records or kill counts, but of something greater. Soldiers spoke her name when reminding each other to look out for their brothers. They quoted her words when teaching recruits that strength isn't just pulling a trigger, but also holding someone up when they're about to fall. And long after the dust settled, the faint number carved into that rifle stock remained, not as a boast, not as a record, but as a reminder that the greatest shots don't echo in valleys or mountains. They echo in lives saved, in kindness shown, in courage carried quietly. And sometimes, the bravest warriors are the ones no one ever sees coming.